Hello everyone, my name is Soren, and today I am joined by Kabba. Oh, you're fine. Kabba is one of the staff members at Megaplex, and he's also con chair?
Former con chair, actually.
At EFS?
At EFS.
Okay.
Emerald's first summit.
Did it run 1 or 2 years?
So it ran 2 years technically.
Clearly, he has some experience with managing conventions. And as you may have seen on Twitter recently, me and some of my Alaska friends are working on getting a convention started in Alaska. So I figured it would be a good idea to sit down with Kabba and talk about some important tips and tricks for running your own furry convention. So now maybe you guys can set one up in your hometown if you don't have one. My first question is always, how do you run a convention, or how do you start up a convention when you don't have any capital investment to begin with, or like minimal?
That is the tricky part. Typically it's going to require some capital to begin with, because you're going to lose a lot of money.
Right.
For example, like with EFS, the way that we began it, I created it was a one-day event the first time. It was a one-day event, and we did it for free. So I fronted the whole cost myself.
Ooh.
It was, yeah.
That sounds like a lot of money to put into something.
It was. The point of it was, I was like, well, if I let people come for free for this one-day thing, it's kind of like a pilot episode, and they get to preview it. And if they like it, maybe they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, it's a test run before they order the full series.
Yes, exactly. Crowdfunding is a source that you might look at.
Everyone else that I've talked to so far has told me do not crowdfund it, because that tells people that like you don't have any money, and like apparently that's a bad look, which makes sense, but like
it's weird because there's some times where that's like a common sense thing, right? You think to yourself, well, this is common sense, but there's a lot of times when things that are common sense like don't match up to the real world. There'll be a scenario where that will happen, and everyone's going to go, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." So I try not to close off any possibility, any possible source of funding. I would say, if I was trying to get creative.
Yeah.
But there are ways to go about it that are way less likely to succeed. There's a lower probability of success.
Right.
For me, I was just trying to create a preview of something that people could look at and say, this is great. I'm going to go next year, and I'm actually willing to pay $20 to go for one day or whatever the cost might be.
Right.
But you're the first 5 years of a brand new furry convention. It's like a danger zone. Like every year, you're in danger of going into the red.
Right.
You can have 2 really good years and then have 1 bad year, and it's game over. Eventually you get to the other side, right? And it's a little more stable over there. I guess maybe it's like walking a tightrope that slowly gets bigger over time until it's just like a bridge. But
gotcha.
The rope part of it is just like way it takes a while to get past that point.
That makes sense. My next big question was, I've been told by a few people that when looking at a venue, you should look at catering options to pay for the venue rather than just a flat rate for the room.
That's tough, because if you're starting a brand new furry convention, something I learned is that the conventional rules,
the standard rules?
The standard rules, they don't always apply. Because you're starting at a much smaller venue, and the way that they run is a little bit differently. It kind of varies from venue to venue than like the major hotels that are used to having like huge conventions.
Right.
They're set up a certain way. They're structured financially a certain way. And these smaller hotels, like the one that we started at, we started at the Homewood Suites, which is it's a very, very small hotel. Very, very small, very homey.
Yeah.
Their approach to it was very different in terms of like the way we looked at the rates and stuff. So let me try the best way to phrase this really.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the is that?
And this sucks, but like this is just like me telling you directly. Like,
right? Yeah.
The conventional quote unquote knowledge, it doesn't really apply, because the way that the major leagues are set up in terms of the convention structure,
it's all completely different than the small ones.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that makes sense.
You're building a baby convention that's supposed to operate like a regular convention, and it's being put into a different environment that's not structured for that.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to adapt to it until you get big enough to where now you're in the big environment.
Yeah.
And it works.
So obviously Alaska is not the most populous state.
Is that true?
What?
Is that true, or is that one of those things that just like seems like it's true?
That it's not the most populous state?
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Oh.
There's only 2 states with less population than Alaska. Can you guess which ones they are?
Few moments later.
Arizona?
Nope. Phoenix, Arizona has a population of 4 million people.
These are strange facts that you just know off the top of your head.
I play a lot of geography games.
Okay, all right.
Eventually.
Utah?
Nope. The 2 states are Wyoming and Vermont.
I used to Wyoming. I wasn't gonna say Vermont though. So what's their population?
The population of Alaska in 2010 was about 725,000 people. So their estimate.
2 hours later.
Where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So we're not. It's not the most populous state.
Right.
So we're probably going to be starting off with a pretty small attendance number. What are some easy ways to draw in a slightly larger crowd?
And the way that we approach it is one way to approach it, and I would never subscribe to saying this is the only way to do it.
Right.
So the way that we approached it is we started off by building a local furry community, like a local furry. We started off by building a local furry group.
Right.
And it was just like 35 people. Like actually, we started on Telegram. We had like 35 people in there, but the group started to grow. We would host a lot of events in the area at like local game stores, things like that.
Gotcha.
And the community started to grow over time, and eventually we reached the size to where we were at like 200 local furries. And at this point, I could look at like the chat list, and I could tell you who in that chat was like within a 50-mile radius and who wasn't.
Right.
So we kind of knew at this point, we had a resource now to know who was in our area. We had a way to get that information to them quickly. And we created a community where everybody kind of knows each other. So these people are all familiar and comfortable with each other already.
Right.
So going to like a large event it's not like you're going to see a bunch of strangers. You're going to see people that you already know.
Right.
But they're just all in one place at one time.
Yeah.
And so we started that way, and then once we had enough people, we would host events at some of our local game stores that would reach 65 people.
That's not bad.
It's not too bad.
That's big enough to call it an event.
So
and not just like a meetup or something.
Yeah. That's when we started thinking, okay, this is getting into that territory where it's like it's in that in between area. We thought, well, let's just see if we can push it past that line into a convention, basically. And
so how many people came to Emerald Fur Summit last year? Or this year, whatever was the last one?
Oh God, hang on, I have to pull out my phone. It's been a while.
What is that, Private Pie?
Don't look, he's breaking the magic.
Oh my God.
Several days later.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
Almost there, I promise.
Oh, it's all good. Take your time. I won't die of heat stroke immediately.
At Emerald's first summit in 2018, we had 235 attendees.
All right. So we've got a Facebook group, and we've also got a Telegram chat for like just Alaska furs in general. The problem with Alaska is Emerald Fur Summit's in like it's in the south somewhere, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola, Florida. Okay. So I don't know what the population of Florida or like that area is, but it's probably a lot of people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know numbers, but I know there's people everywhere.
Yeah. So Alaska is like the size of the entire rest of the U.S., but there's only 750,000 people. So we're all spread out all over the place. We've got about 300 people in the Facebook group and about 100 in the Telegram group, as far as I know. I'm not in the Telegram group, and I know a lot of people that aren't in the Telegram group for various reasons, but I was thinking that we could probably pull an attendance of around 100 to 200 total, because whenever we've mentioned to the Facebook and Telegram groups, like, hey, if we were to do it this weekend or like in this time frame, who would try to come? And the vast majority of them are like, oh yeah, if we get a con, I will go. Like, I'll quit my job if I have to. Like, so I feel like they're pretty dedicated. Obviously not everyone's gonna make it, but we were also thinking a lot of out-of-state people might be interested, which was why I made that tweet to see like how many out-of-state people actually are interested. and the number actually came back to be a lot more than I expected. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, so
How do you get a good idea of your initial attendance if you don't have like a built-up event that you've already been doing?
that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I mean, part of what we were doing is we were trying to build a reputation of success.
Excuse me.
So yeah,
What's up?
Could I get a picture with you two?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the best.
Yeah, so I was asking, how do you get an idea of initial attendance if you don't already have some kind of event to draw from?
Okay, so with furries, it can be a little difficult. So with us having an established event, you can kind of gauge like, okay, there's going to be like a 20 to 30% like drop off rate. So if people
Right.
say 100 people say they want to go to the event, you end up with maybe like 60 to 70 people that are actually there.
Okay, that's a good metric.
It's probably somewhere around there. I don't know, like if there haven't been any established events in that area, and it's hard for me to say for sure.
Gotcha.
Because most of the folks in our area, like they know what the events are like.
Right.
So there is an established brand at that point.
Right.
That people just know that they can trust, because you are the brand essentially.
Right.
And before you become a convention, you're basically just the person that's running an event, and you are the brand before the convention even can come up.
That makes sense.
But yeah, you might be looking at somewhere between like a 20 to 30% drop off rate. If there's no established event, maybe increase that a little bit. And if you really want to be like conservative, just say that maybe half might drop off.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips that you think are just general good, helpful tips to give out to anyone trying to start a convention?
So the money thing, I think, is an obvious thing, but I think that people resources are the most important thing with the convention.
Right.
When I say people resources, I don't mean Soylent Green. I mean like
Soylent Green is people.
I feel like Soylent Green today, honestly.
I feel like that too.
After staffing for 3 or 4 days, you start to feel like you've been just turned into Soylent Green. Soylent Furry. Anyway, what was I saying? So when I say
resources.
when I say people resources, I'm talking about like the volunteers
Right.
and the staff that run the convention. And everyone's used to hearing like, if you ever like follow conventions or you watch like YouTube videos of conventions, opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies, you hear a lot of talk about like, the staffers and the volunteers and how important they are.
Yeah.
And some people just think it's just, well, they're just being nice, but it's the backbone of the entire, it's what makes the whole thing work.
Right. So what are like the most important staffers to have?
I would say, gosh, it's hard. I would say before you even get to that point, you really have to. How do you know that you have a team that can even do the job? Like you have
Right.
to have people that you trust,
Right.
people that have the right skill sets, and how do you do that with a new convention? You don't have a network that's pretty established.
Well, I do know a lot of the people in the local group, and a lot of them have expressed their support and said that they'd be willing to work a convention. So
the best thing to do is to really you're going to mix new talent with some seasoned veterans, people who've already worked conventions before.
Gotcha.
Because they're going to be the only ones. Because if you've never done it before, and your team's never done it before, then how do any of you know that you're doing it right?
That's a good point. So what you're saying is we should bring in some outside talent for the first couple of years at least, to be like the voice of reason, sort of. Like
That's always helpful.
okay, that makes sense, obviously.
There is there's this thing called the FCLR, which is it's short for Furry Convention Leadership Roundtable.
Ooh.
And this is basically like I think of it as like I think of this as like the United Nations of the furry convention community.
Nice.
So it's basically all the major conventions, furry conventions across the world. They have this Telegram group and this mailing list where they basically communicate together. They share information together on how to run things, on best practices, and new conventions gain a lot out of that. So
You gotta send me that information so I can get in on that.
I'm going to send you that as soon as we're done with this video, actually.
Perfect.
In fact, I'm going to talk to Hino about it in a little bit because I'm actually going to see him.
All right.
He's the chairman of Megaplex, by the way.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So yeah, and he's one of the people that's in there. getting access to a network like that is very, very helpful because first of all, you learn that all these furry conventions that sometimes you see like maybe some negative like talk about it, like this convention is trying to be this convention or this convention doesn't like this convention.
Right.
And it kind of all that just melts away, and you start to see like these guys are all helping each other.
Yeah.
And when I started my furry convention, I would not have gotten as far as I did if it were not for the SCLR.
I will make sure to contact them then.
Yep. So yeah, either having people on your team that have like that are seasoned veterans, or reaching out to people, that have that knowledge. You can at least say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Does that sound like a dumb idea, or am I on the right track? And
right.
That's how you kind of course correct a little bit.
Gotcha. I do have one more question.
Uh-oh.
And that is, when looking at venues, how important is it to have a really nice venue? Because right now, we've already ruled out that we can't do it in downtown Anchorage because there's no airport shuttle service from any of those hotels. They're all exorbitantly expensive because they're all really fancy. And the convention centers downtown are all like 3 million, 4 million square feet and require like union work and all kinds of stuff that we can't afford. So we've been looking at some of the smaller airport hotels. And one of the ones that I've looked at, it's pretty nice. It was remodeled recently. The room rates are good. The cost to rent out the whole convention space was only like $10,000 or $15,000.
It is literally 12:40 at night. Oh well, and I would like to take my last picture if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Questions about you asked about how nice venues versus just practical ones.
Right. So we've narrowed it down to we want it to be one of the airport hotels because of shuttle service and location, and they tend to be cheaper.
Okay.
Right now, there's like 2 or 3 that we're really looking at. The one that I personally like is really nice. It was remodeled recently. They've got a restaurant and a bar. It's right on Lake Hood, which is the largest seaplane base in the world.
Yeah.
And it's got great views. It's a really nice hotel.
Okay.
There's another one that's just down the street a little bit. It's a lot cheaper, but it's not nearly as nice. So how important is it to have an impressive, if that's the right word, venue?
You know, with major conventions, the venue is really it's a lot of window dressing, right?
Right.
But there's other pieces to a large convention that kind of even everything out.
Right.
With a small convention, the window dressing doesn't really matter because what really carries a smaller convention is the heart and the soul of that convention. And it's really in how you run the event and how personable everybody is.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to go check out Kabba on YouTube. He makes fun videos, and I'm in a blooper for one of them. Do you have anything you want to say about your YouTube channel?
12 seconds later.
Yes. I do some animation stuff. I do some serious stuff. I do some funny stuff. And I'm Kabba. That's about it.
Go subscribe to Kabba.